Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Some people, I think, have got their audios off, so please put it on if you can't hear. Can we start the session? Many people are not here yet. Okay, I think I'll start because I can't hear you all if you're talking or if you're answering.
Okay, madam, you can start. I think so.
Thank you. All right. Thank you all for being present. And to start off with, I would like to know, was the first lecture understandable? Was it okay? Did you hear? Did you understand? Sorry. The notes?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. What about the rest? Please, I need some answers here. Can't be only one person answering.
Yes, madam.
Okay, good. Mr. Apia, did you understand? I can't hear you.
Now you hear me?
Yes, I can now.
Yeah. Okay.
Are you okay, Mr. Apia? Everything okay?
Right. Yeah.
Your camera is on and I could see you scrolling on your phone, so it would be useful if you could just give a little bit of
Yeah.
attention to the lecture.
It's the same program. Okay. Thanks. Sorry for interrupting.
It's okay. I'm just asking a question. And
Yeah.
I asked about the first lecture. Is everything okay? Did you understand the notes?
Yeah.
Did you, okay, good. All of you, did you have a chance to read a couple of extra readings that I gave you?
Yeah.
How was it?
Quite long but interesting.
Okay, so if it's quite long, I would urge all of you not to keep everything. For those of you who are not reading or who did not have time for some reason, please, please, please don't leave everything till the last minute. You will have too much to do. Okay. Once the lecture is over, try your best. You have a couple of weeks ahead of you. Try your best to finish the extra readings within the couple of weeks, as long as assignments and other revisions are not due yet. I'm sure you have other lectures as well to concentrate on. Okay. So when it's quite long, or if it's a lot, like I said, read over it and extract the notes that are useful to you. Is that what you have done for those of you who have read? I think Shubha is trying to speak, but I can't hear. I'm sorry. Put your microphone on.
It's on, madam.
J'entends pas. Il
It's
faut
on.
augmenter le volume, s'il vous plaît.
No, it's on. The volume also has been increased.
Okay, good. So when I ask a question, I expect everybody to answer, okay? Please. We don't meet often. So I need to know what are your thoughts and your views. And if you have any questions, do you have any questions about the first lecture? We
No,
looked
madam.
at... J'entends pas, pardon?
No, madam. No question.
Okay, thank you. There's a way to type here. Okay. So what we looked at in the first lecture was the definition of assessments, the definition of intervention, what are the different ways we can look at assessment and intervention. Okay. More so what we looked at was why do we have to do assessments? Okay. Why do we have to do interventions? What protects people from assessments? And what are the implications? It was a general overview of the topic. And I also rounded up the lecture by linking assessment to monitoring and intervention to evaluations in all contexts. Okay. Now, I had given a couple of questions to reflect on. I'm sure all of you did it, no? I asked, now that you don't, do you have any questions so far? Before I start the lecture for today. Only one person answered. If anybody's got a question, please try to type it if I can't hear you, or speak a bit loudly, please. Okay, the first question I asked my friends is, should interventions necessarily happen after assessments? When you have a question in front of you, what is the first thing that you do as students? Any question? Tell me, please. Search for keywords. Yes.
Identify
Yes,
the
Nikita,
keywords
tell me.
first. Identify the keywords.
Yes, like Rohan just said, identify the keywords. Here, what are the keywords? In this question here, should interventions necessarily happen after assessments?
Intervention and after assessment.
Yes, in fact, the keyword here is necessarily and after, for me, okay? Like I say, all questions are open to interpretation, individual interpretation. I had mentioned this before, that everybody looks at a question as per their own experience, their own knowledge, their own work experience, and whatever they have read before. So for somebody, it could be interventions after assessments. For me, it could be necessarily and after. And anybody has got a different point of view you want to share? Okay. Now that you have identified some keywords, okay, I read the question again and I underline whatever I know is a keyword. The question says, I read it again, should interventions happen after assessment? So what is this question about here? Assessments or intervention?
Assessment?
I'm sorry, Mr. Apia, but the
Assessment?
question is about interventions.
Oh,
It's not about assessments. The question itself asks you, should interventions necessarily happen after assessments? Okay, so it is about intervention. When you're answering questions for this course, let me make one thing very clear to you, and I will keep on repeating it so that all of you understand it properly well. When I ask any question, whether it's for an assessment exam or any general question, I will always ask question for one part of the lecture, c'est-à-dire, if I ask about assessments, you answer only about assessments. If I ask about interventions, you please answer only at interventions. Don't mix both of them, okay? This lecture is divided into 4 parts. Assessment and intervention in groups, general one, organizations, communities, and institutions. All of these 4 lectures here, they're different, okay? C'est-à-dire, assessment in groups, organizations, communities, and institutions are 4 different things. Just as interventions in groups, organizations, communities, and institutions is different. You will discover as and when the lecture progresses. This is the first thing. Now, second thing, the way I set my questions is I will always ask you a question on part of the lecture. C'est-à-dire, pour les examens, vous aurez un choix. Alors, vous aurez 5 ou 6 questions à choisir, peut-être répondre 3 là-dedans. Quand vous donne 5 questions, when I give 5 questions, it will all be different, okay? It will be either assessment on groups, organization, institution, or another one, or interventions on groups, organizations, institutions, and communities. So, for example, if I ask you, discuss an example, discuss the importance of assessments in communities. What am I asking you here? I am asking you only to answer about assessments and communities. I am not asking about anything else in the lecture. So this makes it much easier for you to concentrate on the question and to answer what is needed. For example, let's take another example. I can tell you what is the importance of having regular interventions in social organizations. I'm asking only about interventions in social organizations. So you don't have to discuss any other part of the lecture in it. You just answer about interventions in social organizations. Vous avez compris? This is a very important aspect of this that you have to understand right from the beginning. Okay? It will make your answering easier. It will make your understanding of the course itself easier. And of course, the person who has read the notes on all 4 different lectures and done the research, they will know how to answer because all of it is different. Okay? So in the exams, it will be easier because you have a choice. Si moi pas révise institution, pas fait rien, ben moi c'est répondre à une autre question. Si moi pas révise organisation, ben moi pousser répondre à une question là communities avec institution qui me connaît. Vous avez compris? Vous avez bien compris ça là?
Oui, madame.
Okay, so only Shobha answering. What about the rest?
Yes, madam.
Oui, madame.
Okay, if anybody not understood, please feel free to ask me all the time or anytime. Mon papa arrête de dire ça aspect là, ok, parce que c'est très important. C'est crucial pour qu'ils te comprennent. So last week we discussed and we talked about a general introduction on assessment and intervention, and we talked about groups. And like I told you, groups can be any group. Okay, it's a general topic. Groups can be, we are a group here, like I said. Group is a very vast thing. Anything can be a group. Any group of people working together or doing an activity together is called a group. So that's why it's a general topic for you to understand the concepts of assessment and intervention. So today's lecture is going to be more specific. We are going to talk about assessment and interventions in profit-making organizations and assessment and intervention in social organizations, two different types of organizations, okay? Right, before I go on to this lecture, let us try and answer this question. Briefly, okay, I want to know your views on it. Should interventions necessarily happen after assessments? It is a very broad question. It's a general question. Mo pan demande lo organisation, lo communauté, lo institution là. Monique demande une question générale. Should the intervention necessarily happen after assessments? So what do you think? Tell me.
Madam,
Yes.
if we follow guidelines, yes, we should. There must be an assessment of each case, and then it will be followed by intervention. But
Yes.
if we, depending on the urgency of and the nature of a situation, then intervention might be necessary before an assessment is made.
Very good. I think that's about sums it up. Like
Yes,
you
ma'am.
say, interventions doesn't necessarily happen after assessments. It does, yes.
Intervention should be before, so that you can know the problem, where lies the problem, so that you can assess it.
Exactly. You're right. You're both right in what you're saying here. The first answer was yes, intervention should happen after assessments. Yes. But like you said, it can happen before if we have already done this type of project before, if we're familiar with it. If we are not familiar with it, we will not be able to do because we don't know what to expect out of it. And also, interventions necessarily happens depending on the situation. Let's say you have a sudden crisis situation. You have to immediately find a solution. So you have to intervene. You're not going to wait for the project to be completed and then do it. No? Like I think Devika just answered. So should it happen necessarily after assessments? Frankly speaking, no, not necessarily. It can happen before. If it is ideally done, and I repeat, ideally done after an assessment. It can happen before an assessment if we have already done a similar project and we have learned from our mistakes. We know what to expect, but it can also happen during an assessment or during the ongoing phase of the project so that we know what to correct to get back on track. Okay? This is how you can answer a question. The second question was, can assessment and interventions be independent of each other? What do you think? This is again a general question that I'm asking. It's not related to any specific part of the lecture. It is about your own understanding of the topic. Can they be independent of each other? Dites-moi qu'est-ce que vous pensez?
Oui, madame. Yes, it is case to case. So both of them complement each other. Going through proper channel brings better understanding and thus a better intervention. The assessor is on the safe side. It stays within the circle. However, in difficult situation, it's better to intervene rather than assess.
Okay, so what you're saying is, yes, they should be independent of each other. Okay, good. Tell me about a situation where they should not be independent then, where you can link assessment and intervention. Like you said, one answer, an answer could be in a crisis situation, an unforeseen circumstance. Yes. What about any other circumstances you know of from your work experience or from your own knowledge?
Yes.
Madam,
There should be the
let's say, Madam, during
1 minute.
flood or cyclone,
Sorry, say again. I didn't hear.
yeah, during flood or cyclone, before it strikes, you remove people who can be prone and shelter them in an evacuation center. So we just don't wait it to happen and then intervene. Before a cyclone strikes, we just have to remove them, or we know that there is flood coming, so we just remove them, put them in an evacuation center to be on the safe side. So we don't have to assess and see who is eligible, who is going to go there. No, we just remove everyone in that situation.
Good. This is a good example of how we should intervene first and then assess the situation, isn't it?
Yes,
You have to know how many
intervene.
people go, what happened, what did not happen, qui dans les problèmes, qu'est-ce qu'il faut faire après. Ce assessment-là vient après. Nous devons intervenir avant. Mr. Apia, did
Yeah.
you want to share something?
You must intervene, as in the case of NUF, we work at Social Security. You must go and assess the house there. People seeking concrete house. You must go, what are the amenities that they possess, television or all amenities, and then you can see to it if they are eligible to get and help for a new housing scheme, as the NSCC does build house for underprivileged people. You must assess these people first.
Okay, good. So you have given a good example of when assessment and interventions go together. While I'm in front of a situation, I need to both assess and intervene, isn't it? So to answer the question, like I say, there is different points of view. So if you have a general question like this, to answer it, you can give examples and know whether they should be independent or not independent. Okay? In what cases they are. Yes, Vinesh, you wanted to ask something? Okay. Yes, routine interventions is done maybe in some types of jobs, but after a while, I will ask you, what is the use of a routine intervention? To be able to be more clear about routine interventions, you need to know why do we do them and in what circumstance, isn't it? Let's say you are a fireman in those fire rescue services. They do routine checkups, routine interventions pour voir que tout va bien. Bien bon. It depends on what jobs you're doing, basically. Okay? Depends on the gravity of the situation. You have used a very interesting word here, a routine intervention, maybe a continuous intervention. We should know after a while what is a remedy to a situation. If we're intervening all the time, is there a problem, a bigger problem that needs to be solved? Firefighting is one good example because that came to mind. If you have another example, you can use it. Yes, Shubha, you wanted to ask something? Yeah. Okay. So good, then you can talk about the purpose of routine interventions and how effective it is. Okay. That is also a good way to answer the question. Shobha, you wanted to share something before we move on?
Maybe sometimes intervention can be implemented based on budgetary policies, not necessarily on assessment.
Yes,
Policy
budgetary
decisions.
policies, when you have to necessarily implement a project without doing an assessment, then in this case, again, like I said, interventions come before an assessment, isn't it? Another example you can use. Since most of your social workers here, you have a variety of examples you can choose from. Okay, anybody else got something to say before I move on? No, Ali. Okay. So, today is not about organizations. It's about communities. It's better because you need to say assessment and intervention in communities. So we will talk about this. It will fine-tune your thinking about it. We'll do organizations next lecture. Right. So if I ask you, what is the definition of a community? What is a community for you? What do you know about a community? Qu'est-ce que vous allez répondre?
It's about a group of people living together.
Yes, in the social sense, yes, it's a group of people living together. From your book, your ascribed reading from Open University, you will see that a community is made up of individuals, like you say, a group of individuals, sometimes having a common purpose, sometimes an influential group of individuals. It is also a neighborhood, an informal group of individuals, the area where you live, it's a community. If you have something called a neighborhood watch, okay, which is implemented in many areas in Mauritius. It is a community of people living together to organize the neighborhood watch. Sometimes it's a network of people on social media. Maybe you're part of groups who share common interests, groups who share common hobbies, or groups who share common social causes. Excuse me. Yes, Rohan, you wanted to say something?
Ma'am, can we say that the community is a group of people who share a particular kind of characteristic?
Sorry, particular kind of what?
Particular kind of characteristic?
Yes, that's the definition, a particular kind of characteristic. But when we talk about individuals, we don't talk about characteristics. It's not a thing. It's not a product. Individuals share the same thought patterns, maybe, common beliefs, common cause or common working group, okay? Not necessarily the same characteristics. Characteristics is something else, I guess. When we talk about individuals here, community of individuals, c'est pas nécessairement les mêmes caractéristiques. Maintenant, une chose est très importante. Please do not confuse community in English with the same definition in French or in Creole. In French or Creole, like we are used to, c'est communauté. Ici, à Maurice, bien des fois, le mot communauté est associé à la religion, qui n'est pas tout le temps vrai. Mais ici, nous distorse c'est une perception. In English, community doesn't mean religion. You can be part of a community religious group, very good, but that is a community of people, one amongst many communities that exist in society. Ici, en créole, quand on dit communauté, don't make the same association, ok? Communauté, nous dit, ah, ça c'est une communauté musulmane, ça c'est une communauté chinoise, ça c'est une communauté chrétienne, ok? Ça c'est différent. Please, community in English means any group of people who have a common purpose, a common belief, a common work, a common project to accomplish. They can be people from any religion, any background, any whatever, social background, okay? Yes, Shobha, you wanted to say something? Sorry?
No, madam. No,
Okay.
madam.
Fine. What characterizes a community? Comme je dis, they share the same characteristics, yes, but they don't share the same. Sorry, let me rephrase that. How do we know it is a community of people? Okay. Whenever there is an issue or a problem or a cause to fight for, let's say we all here, we decide to support the Palestinian cause. For example, it's a problem happening in the world right now. People are dying of hunger, they are dying of disease, of war, of everything. We all here, we decide to make a group and we will fight for the cause, or we will see what we can do about it. We'll write a letter to the government or something. So that makes us a community of people fighting for the same cause. What characterizes this group, this community here, is the same cause, the same reason they are together. What is the issue? What is the problem? Or what is the project that we need to accomplish? Many a times we have an informal way of dealing. Okay, it is not formally characterized. It doesn't have a legal aspect to it, a legal entity. And many a times it is mostly built on networking. Who knows who can get the job done faster, who can talk to the influential people and put our cause forward. However, there are some limitations to a community, okay? Many a times, I've seen it in Mauritius especially, it can arise because of a personal need, okay? For example, if I have a family member in my house or in my family who is suffering from a very rare form of disease or rare form of disability, for example, okay? So I decide, I don't know much about it. I am not a doctor. I don't have information on it. And I have never met somebody who can guide me through it. So what I do is I try to gather like-minded people to see how I can go forward, how I can tackle this issue, because it's a family member. I don't have information about it. Who should be part of my community? Why them? Okay? You have... sometimes, like I say, on social media, you get a lot of information now. Anybody can form a group on social media and call it a community. Une communauté, nous fight for protection of environment, for example. Okay? Or pollution of sea. We want to stop it. So that makes us a community, not necessarily people of my country. It can be from different countries because they have the knowledge, they have other things to share, and they have the same beliefs as you. So that takes me to the second limitation. Sometimes it doesn't have any space or boundaries. If it has its limitations, okay. But sometimes when you are, especially nowadays on social media, we don't have any space or boundaries for a community to form. So it can grow bigger and bigger and bigger. Then sometimes it can be unmanageable when you have all sorts of people giving their views. When we talk about assessment and interventions, the same assessment and interventions cannot apply to a community comprised of different people with different ways of thinking. It makes assessment and intervention difficult at times, because people tend to lose track of the main cause and start fighting for their own. That's what happens when we form a community informally. Nobody has got a specific role in it. Everybody wants to fight for the cause. sometimes because of their own beliefs and sometimes because other people are doing it. So I should also be part of the community and do it. And many a times what happens is the needs of one individual is not the same as the needs of other individuals. I can be part of a community because of my own interests, because I have a personal thing to gain from it. You can be part of a community because you have a family member who has influenced you. A third person can be part of a community because they get to meet different people whom they don't meet in their everyday lives. So these are some of the limitations that you get while being part of a community. So before we start talking about assessment, doing the assessment of a community and how it's working, we need to know who is the community comprised of, what type of individuals, do they share the same thinking, why are they there, okay? And more so, has a capacity building been done? C'est-à-dire, are these people qualified to fight for the cause? Let's say tomorrow I want to fight for the cause of children dying in Palestine. Okay, it's a good cause. But am I qualified to do it? Do I really know what are the problems those people are suffering from? Do I know what are the issues children are facing? Or I just believe anything that media throws at me? I have not been there. I don't know what are the issues being faced by children. So where am I going to start? Do I have the capacity to do it? Maybe no, maybe yes. I don't know. What are the pressing needs? What should be done? I don't know. I've just gathered like-minded people and decided to fight for the cause. Okay, but who's going to help us fight for it if we don't know it ourselves? It's not happening in our country, so we don't know. Sorry. Why do we need to assess communities? Now I go more in depth of the topic. We have seen what a community is. We have seen what characterizes it, how it is formed. We have seen how what are the limitations of doing assessment in a community and interventions in a community. Why do we need to assess a community now? What are the reasons? First of all, we have to understand what are the needs of the people forming part of the community. Okay, like I just said, everybody could have a different need because it's informal, or everybody could have a different reason to be part of the community. We have to ensure that the resources given to us is meant for non-profit, okay? We're not trying to make a profit out of it. By profit, I mean monetary gains for a community-based issue. So we have to make sure the resources being given to us are being properly utilized. That's why when it doesn't have a structure, it makes it more difficult. We have to understand how they cater for damages and repairs, okay? If a damage has been done or people have left or people are in conflict with each other. So what happens then? Who is going to look after all that? To analyze, of course, based on information they gather and how much people know. If I want to fight for flood-prone areas in Mauritius, for example, how much I know there's a problem. I know my fellow Mauritians are suffering from it in one area or the other. Where do I start? What do I do? Do I even know what is causing the floods? Whose fault is it? Who do I go to see first? To correct the service delivery, okay, as per priority. This is meant for communities who have a particular project to move forward. I want to deliver a service. I want to do something good. Assessments are important to know whether I'm really doing that in the right direction and how long it's going to take. For example, if I want to fight for my fellow citizens who are having problems after heavy rains or cyclones, they're having problems with floods in their houses, for example. Okay. So I need to know who am I going to tackle first, and whether I've been given contacts or a group who can help me, a group of engineers maybe, they can help me. So whether they are really doing the job for these people or they are not, they're just doing it for the area or for something else. So that's why assessment is needed, and especially more so an independent assessment. Sometimes we need to assess a community over a project, over a cause, to redefine the scope of the activities. Okay? Sometimes what we are doing is something what is not needed. We need to do something else. For example, like I said, let me take the example of I want to do something for the children dying in Palestine. Okay, good. They have given me the NGO called Médecins Sans Frontières, for example. Okay, a contact there, a doctor who is working there. Be in contact with that person. He knows, he's seen the area, he's known the situation, he can guide you. Very good, but the doctor is there for everybody, not only for children. So do I have to see only him, or do I need another network to be able to fight for my cause? I'm not saying other people don't need help, everybody does, but I cannot help everybody. I'm just looking at one particular group that I want to do. You understand? You understand why it's important to do an assessment for a community? Because of the specific 5-6 points that I have given you. I will give you all this. I'm explaining to you right now. It's in my notes here. I'm just explaining what I've written first. Okay, you understand why it's important to assess a community? Because of the informal nature, because of people's personal needs, personal thinking. It is best assessed independently. It is best reviewed independently. We have to assess in order to make sure that we are really working towards one same common goal, not for the individual's different goals. Now, what are the factors assessing a community? What are the factors influencing assessment of a community? Again, here it is a composition of the community, people of different backgrounds, people of different experiences in life, people of different ethnicity. Sometimes people suffer from social decomposition, like we see. In other countries, you have war, you have famine. In Mauritius, we have floods, we have crisis, we have the COVID-19 situation. Okay. We have recomposed societies that are made up of different individuals. For example, you have migrants who come in, people who have resettled. Sometimes you have illegal people coming into the country. Maybe in Mauritius, it's a small place, we don't see it really. But in other countries, you certainly have illegal migrants everywhere. People who come into the country without any legal papers. The disparity, the diversity, and the different people making up a community, it causes a societal imbalance. Il y a pas, les gens ne viennent pas du même background et ne sont pas influencés par les mêmes facteurs. Okay? So that's why the assessment needs to be specific for the cause, not for the people. It has to be precised, and of course, it has to be limited in the scope of works. Okay? In Mauritius, for example, let us take the society that we all know of because we all live here. People come from, what are the factors assessing different communities here? If I have to assess a community, what do I bear in mind if I'm in Mauritius? Always remember, people come from different walks of life. We are a multi-ethnic society. We are not a homogeneous society. We're all Mauritians, yes, but all our backgrounds are different. On n'est pas comme anglais ou français ou bien chinois. OK, quand on va dans la Chine, tout le monde chinois là-bas. En Angleterre, les Anglais sont tous des Anglais. Après qu'il y ait un migrant, il y a différents types d'Anglais. Mais ici, à Maurice, originairement, il n'y a aucun Mauricien même. C'est people from different communities were put together here to live. And over the years, it happens, we all form part of the Mauritius community. Right? People come from different walks of life, like I said. People come from different spheres of influence, okay? Some people are influenced by elderlies in their community. They give a lot of respect to elderlies. Some people are influenced a lot by social media. A lot of people, their lives revolve around what happens in other societies. Some people come from religious influences, okay? They believe only what their religious leader tells them. In Africa, you will see a lot of the communities form part of different ethnic groups, okay? In one same country, you can have 20 different ethnic groups. That's why they're always fighting amongst, not always, many times you see problems, war, civil war in Africa, because different ethnic groups are fighting with each other. You have the role of political influence, which is, because it's a small country, it is not difficult to have a politician coming to influence our views. Okay, you have sometimes people are grouped together because of historical circumstances in Mauritius. Okay, some areas are specifically designated because, well, during history it was like that. So 3, 4, 5 generations after, you will see people of the same community living in that area. You have, of course, past divisions, history. Okay, we have been separated, segregated, or treated differently because of historical circumstances. It's the different governments that have tried to sort of recreate a balance in society. Okay? Bien des fois, nous disons, ah, tel du monde, nous connaissons ça, ils viennent depuis une grande famille. Ah, tel du monde, nous connaissons ça, sur famille connectée avec, c'est pas qui ça fait, c'est pas qui politicien. Bien des fois, nous causons comme ça dans Maurice, n'est-ce pas? C'est une réalité, la société qui nous accepte. A lot of times, it depends also in Mauritius about the level of literacy of people, okay? How many, or what jobs people do. Does he have a regular job, this person, or is he just a casual employee? You know very well in Mauritius, the casual, informal sector is very much part of the society. People who work but who don't declare their income. They get paid in cash. Ça existe, n'est-ce pas? Nous aussi, parfois, quand nous employons des gens comme ça, ou bien nous-mêmes, nous faisons un petit travail et tout le monde paye en cash. Ça arrive. So, you can find other factors depending on your own circumstances and how you have been brought up and how you have been educated. Some people give a lot of importance to education, formal education. Some people, some families maybe give a lot of importance to sports, okay? They come from sporting backgrounds in Mauritius. So I have explained to you the factors influencing assessments. Why do we assess? And of course, what are the different aspects you should necessarily see in each and every society. I have given you the example of Mauritius because this is what I know best. I live here, that's what I know. So whenever you have an independent assessor coming to assess, let's say you have somebody from Europe, from America, or from, I don't know, China, anywhere in the world coming to assess Mauritius, what's the first thing they need to do? They have to understand the society first. What is it composed of? How do these people work? How do they earn a living? And how are families, what are families composed of here? Do they live in joint families? Do they live in single-headed families? Do they live in recomposed families? Okay? Then they start their assessments. They cannot come and assess Mauritian communities using their outside influence. Ça n'existe pas. Ça ne peut pas se faire. Because what happens in other countries, we can't relate to it. Governments are different, laws are different, and ways of living of people are different. Let's say tomorrow you go to the UK, you go and settle down in the UK. Okay, many of you must be having friends and family going to Canada, going to UK, going to Australia. Let's say you go to Canada, which is a very common example. I cannot live the same way I'm living in Mauritius in Canada. I have to go and adapt myself there to be able to adjust to that society. I have to be able to follow the working laws that are prevalent there. I have to send my children to school up to a certain age, or I can stop their school. I can give them alternative schooling. I have to basically, as a Mauritian, I have to adapt myself to another country's laws and ways of living in society. OK? Mon pas qu'à dire au Canada, on vient la mer tous les week-ends. Puis dans la mer après là-bas. Mais par contre, un Canadien vient mourir ici, il dit oui, mon capable la mer, mon cas sans. So like, what I'm trying to tell you is, if you are going to assess any community in any country, you have to necessarily understand how it works, how the people live, what is the norms and culture in it. This is part of social assessment of a community. How is it working? Why do these people fight for that cause? What prompts them to fight for that cause as a community? Okay? Any questions so far? Do you understand what I'm trying to explain to you about communities? Yes or no?
Oui, madam. Yes, yes.
Anybody has got questions so far before I move on to interventions? Hein? Pas de question? Okay. Now that I have given you an overview of what assessment at community level is, let us talk about interventions at a community level. Okay? Why? Premièrement, why should we intervene at a community level? After everything I've just explained to you, why do you think interventions are necessary at a community level? Who can try and answer this? Sorry, speak a bit more loudly, please. Yes, but when you talk about remedial actions, you're immediately assuming here that there's a problem with the community working. But if there is no problem?
To improve.
Upgrade what? Please be precise in your answers. What do you mean by upgrade? Upgrading of what? Okay, you're looking at it from one point of view of problems. You're immediately assuming that when there is a community, there should be problems. Of course, interventions generally are needed when there are problems. Ça, c'est applicable pour tout ça. But sometimes we might not have problems in community functioning. So it is interesting to think about, what if I don't have any problems? Everything is functioning well. So why do I need to intervene in a community? Some of the reasons that I put forward, what I want to share with you is, firstly, is as Vinesh said, to improve already existing services that are not working. Okay, either I improve somebody to improve a service to make it function better, or I improve a service because it's not working. Okay. Secondly, of course, to ensure the timely delivery of objectives. I have an objective when I'm forming a community, but I need to fulfill it, finish it within a specific amount of time. We have to also cater for unforeseen events. So there could be an evolving need for a community. Sometimes I might just say, okay, I will look after children only, or I will look after single parents only. But sometimes elderly also need help. Teenagers also need the help. Working ladies also need the help. Okay? So I have to know whether, if I want to work for children, I'm working only for children from beginning to end. I'm not going to involve any other group because I don't have the resources or the knowledge to do it. We have to sometimes harmonize the social policies of the country. Okay, this is done especially at government level. I'm sure all of you have heard of pre-budgetary measures. Okay, where the government says, okay, now come and tell me how should I spend my money? What should I do? I have 100 million rupees to spend in the country. What should I do? Where is my priority? So those interventions at community level help me to have an idea of how that 100 million should be spent within 1 year. Sometimes we have to intervene to cater for marginalized populations, sections of the population in economic development. Okay. Many times, for example, the government says, okay, all working people will get 1,000 rupees every month. Yeah, more. But what about people who cannot work for a reason?
No. Pension has been...
Or what about people who are forced not to work for some reason? Okay, either they suffer from maladie, or bien there's a problem, they cannot work. They cannot earn a living. Ça veut dire, moi, pas 5,000 roupies là. So, justement, we have to intervene at community level so that we know all social policies are harmonized. Si vous n'êtes pas capable de gagner, vous allez aller d'une autre façon. Or you put the policy for everybody. C'est pas just for working people who earn money. It should be for everybody. Like the government annually gives increases in salary. C'est pour tout le monde qui travaille. Okay. Yes, Devika, you wanted to say something?
Yeah. Yes, madam. Can we say to give equal opportunity to everyone there?
Yes. In social, we do already have laws on equal opportunity. Okay. But let's take an example. Let's take an example of women employment. Ça peut venir un grand débat ces jours-ci. We need equality in society. Very good. But it is a good cause to fight for. We will implement laws and we will make sure it happens. Very good. Now, what about in some communities where they don't allow women to work? They say no, women should not be working. They should be doing something else. They should be self-employed instead of working for somebody else. What happens then? Because my country is made up of different groups. In fact, many countries now are made up of different groups. Say, no, women should not be working for somebody else, under somebody else. They should be opening up their own business and be self-employed. Happens. I have worked in communities in Africa, for example, where their beliefs tell them the role of a woman is not to work in an office, is to open her own small business at home and cater for society needs, not cater to an entrepreneur needs. You understand? That's why I say harmonization of social policies, interventions in communities help to harmonize the social policies. At times, social policies don't allow that. Communities themselves don't allow that. Of course, you have to intervene to improve your support network. Let's say you need a different group of professionals to help you achieve your goals. So what happens in that, in this case is, okay, these individuals are not enough. I need other people. I need other funds. I need other expertise. And there's a very important aspect of why we should intervene more so at community level, my friends, is to shift the focus from community care to community development. I personally like to elaborate on this if I had something to write. Speaking of me personally here, you can have a different opinion if you want. Sometimes in communities, especially what I have seen in Mauritius, we tend to cater for only people who are working for us. Okay, let's say, or people I know. Let's say, for example, I form part of the flood prevention, flood disaster prevention community, for example. Okay, I am looking at only people I know around, but at times I need to extend my services, or I need to extend my knowledge, my know-how, know why, to other sections and other different parts of the country where people are also suffering from the same problem. They don't have that type of community at their level, so it doesn't mean they don't have a problem. Nobody looks after them. Okay, so that's why interventions are needed to know when to shift the services from community caring to community development as a whole. Okay? Now, how do we intervene? How do we know? No, let me tell you first about how do we intervene at community level. Okay, what are the different approaches of interventions at community level? We have the empowerment approach, or the need to know approach, c'est-à-dire I empower my people with knowledge, my community members with knowledge, only what they need to know. I empower them with broader knowledge. I tell them do the work themselves, or I only give them a need to know approach, c'est-à-dire I give them minimum intervention and somebody else is doing the work. You have interventions led by facilitators or by experts. You have a problem-solving focus or a process focus. Either I solve the problem, I fight for the cause, or I spend my time at the community managing the process, how it's going to be done, why it's going to be done. C'est là où il y a des problèmes, où il faut trouver des mesures d'intervention. Parce que bien des fois, parce que c'est pas mal organisé, c'est organisé informellement, we tend to lose a lot of time in the process. Sometimes we have ongoing reflection, okay? Either the intervention is ongoing or it is periodic. I do it only at specific periods of time. Many a times we have to base our interventions on social analysis. Okay, like I said, it's very important, crucial to know who are the members and what are their backgrounds. Or it can be based by a central planning. Sometimes you have only one person who says, non, nous vous faites comme ça, telle façon, telle méthode, servir telle ressource, because that's what the person knows and everybody's got to follow. So these are the different approaches that we can use to provide for an intervention at the community level. When you have a question to answer about intervention, it can be useful for you if you elaborate, if you read a bit more about those approaches and see what type of approach will suit the situation best, the situation at hand best. Okay? Now, I have spoken at length about assessment and intervention in communities. And like I said before, assessment is linked to monitoring and intervention is linked with what? What is it linked with?
When problem arise.
Pardon?
When problem arise.
Yeah, but I use another word for it. On vient de parler ça là, les amis. Assessment is linked with monitoring. What is intervention linked with? J'ai dit ça dans le premier lecture, j'ai dit ça aujourd'hui aussi. Gezut note. Dis-moi, je ne vais pas vous dire. Ça, c'est un peu étonnant, ça, hein? Nobody can answer me?
Situations with different situations coping up.
J'ai dit evaluation. Vous avez oublié? J'ai dit assessment is linked with monitoring and intervention is linked with evaluation, les amis. Okay? Instead of using assessment and intervention, we can use the terms monitoring and evaluation. When we're intervening, what we're doing? We're evaluating to provide for corrective measures, n'est-ce pas? On sait ça jusqu'à maintenant. Okay? Please don't forget this, okay? Keep it in mind all the time for this lecture. So, I want to talk a little bit about monitoring of community work, okay? What are the factors to consider when I'm monitoring community work? J'ai déjà parlé de factors to consider when we are doing assessment at community level. What are the characteristics? What are the factors to consider? Tout ça, très bien. Ça, c'est what I need to know beforehand. Okay? Now, while I'm doing the assessment, when I'm monitoring, when I'm doing the process of assessing the work the community is doing, let's say I am the assessor of your community here. You are a student group community, okay? Moi, fini connais tout différent, tout mauricien, tout travail dans différentes organisations, tout peut apprendre pour être capable de passer l'examen après 15 degrés. Right? All of you have a common need here, irrespective of your background, personality, work, or anything. And all of you come from a different family. Bien bon. Now, I need to assess how you are doing your work. I have this lecture. You have your notes, you have your readings. How do I do that? What do I need to consider? I need to give you questions, and then I have to see how you answer them. I need to give you assignment, so that I know how you're answering the questions. I also need to give you an exam so that I know whether you know about what you have learned or not. Okay? Now, Tout ça, c'est très bien. Now, while you're doing your work on a weekly or 2-weekly, bi-weekly basis, how do I monitor your what you're doing or not? Sometimes it's difficult for me because you are all distance learning students, okay? For a teacher in a classroom, it's easier. Toutes les semaines, ils besoin progrès sur les enfants, pas de devoir en ligne données. But how me as a part-time lecturer, I'm going to assess people sometimes I have never met, people I don't know, people who have a common goal, okay? And I need to review your progress. It is impossible, because it's a distant learning, okay? It is impossible for me to do it on a weekly basis. I don't know whether you're reading or you're doing your notes. I can only trust that you're doing it. However, if I have to do it, there are some factors to consider that makes my monitoring a bit slower. What makes it slower? It is the goal that we have to achieve. We all have a common goal here. Passing exams, that is a common goal, okay? Now, I have to make sure that I give you all that you need to pass your exams one. I have to give it to you in a formal way. I have to put it all on Blackboard so that I know everybody has got access to it. Sometimes in communities, you have the informal way of doing things. Okay, that's what characterizes a community many a times. So it makes the informality of procedures makes monitoring difficult. In our case here, the formality of the procedures doesn't allow for monitoring. I don't know how many of you have read, how many of you have accessed the documents, and how many of you have grasped. I will only know it periodically, unless I give you a test every week, which is not possible because you're distant learners. Sometimes, because we have different types of people in a group, it makes duplication of initiatives. Ça, c'est quelque chose que, let me explain. Ça, c'est quelque chose que, because of the informal aspect of a group, here we are a formal group here, so bien bon. All lecturers have the same goal, and all students have the same goal. And there's only one way to give the lectures via Blackboard. Okay, this is a formal community of students here. What about an informal group? I said once, the word itself says it, the informality of procedures and the work being done. There's no formal set way to do something. Everybody comes from a different way of thinking. So everybody will have their own input in it. At times, you may have a duplication of initiatives, 2-3 people doing the same thing because they want to surpass their connections or they want to show off their way of doing. There's no synergy here. Means we are not valuing people for what they can contribute. Other informal groups forming for competition. At times, because people don't agree with what you're doing in an informal way, they say, hey, moi pas d'accord, moi pas le faire de l'autre façon. It can happen. So they form their own little group and they say, moi pas d'accord, comment tu peux faire, moi pas aller, moi pas pour rester là-dedans, moi pas le former le petit groupe, nous pour faire travail là plus bien. Ça peut arriver. There is no formal binding for these people to remain in your community. You have the aspect of value adding in a group, okay? People many a times in an informal group don't understand that everybody works differently. Everybody has got their own way of thinking, which is a good thing. We need to have variety and synergy in a society. Tout le monde ne pense pas pareil, tout le monde ne fait le même travail. Ça peut ne pas marcher des fois. We can fail. So, what makes monitoring difficult in this sense is because of this variety of thinking, because of this different aspect of everybody's functioning, we don't see people as their value adding. We see them as same thinking. We say, no, we are fighting for the same cause, so everybody should think the same. But no, people always have some different value to add. Everybody's got their one little bit to add to make the monitoring, the cause you're fighting for, a success. So what makes monitoring difficult is precisely value adding is not practiced. They want everybody to do the same thing. Moun dia ou fait finance ou fait 10 finance. Moun dia ou road contact ou 10 contact. Ou moun dia ou get communication ou 10 communication. Mais capable de dire dans les affaires pour ajouter qu'il nous pas connaît, mais nous pas dire faire ça parce qu'il est informel. C'est là que nous avons un petit groupe, du bon sorti des PM groupe et je t'en faire un autre, même travail mais d'une autre façon. The one thing that we always keep in mind while monitoring a community work is, what is our target, my friends? Like I'm telling you from the beginning of the lecture, a community works for a common goal. We have that goal. So what is our target? Let's say my common goal is to look after, to do something for children who are suffering from war in Palestine. Okay, it's a big target. Where do I start? Where do I finish? I can't do it for all the children. I don't know how many children are affected. Millions and millions, maybe. So how is somebody going to monitor what I'm doing? I need to tell the person, okay, I cannot do it for millions of children. I want to start off with 50,000 children in one area. The target needs to be precise. Okay? Sometimes when the community work or a goal is achieved, we need to gauge the impact of the decisions and the impact of the progress. What I mean by this is, bien bon, si nous réussi gagne consensus, nous in réussi achieve new target. Let's say I want to do something for flood-prone houses in my community. Very good. We managed to get the engineers and the government to give us funds to build drains. Okay, we put the drains, we put everything that needs to be put. Now, I need to wait till the next flood happens to know whether my work has had an impact or not, whether it has really improved the lives of the families around me or not. Okay, my target is not the whole of my area. It is just 2 roads here. So how has it affected these people? If it has been a success, then yes, I can replicate it in other areas. So what I've just explained to you here, my friends, is the importance of assessing a community and importance of timely intervention in a community, and some of the issues or problems associated while I'm monitoring the progress of my work at a community informal level. Comprendez? Vous avez compris?
Oui, madame.
Répondez à chaque fois les mêmes personnes qui répondent. What about the rest? Tell me whether you understand, whether you have grasped the concept or whether you have not. I need to know as a lecturer. I need to assess myself. I need to improve. If you don't tell me, how will I know?
Yes, understood.
Yes, understood, madam, but it will take time to just grasp everything at one time. Maybe with the notes, it will be okay.
Right. I have not asked you whether you have grasped. I asked you whether you have understood what I've explained. Grasping will take a couple of weeks when you read the notes and you reread the extra readings. Okay? Vous avez compris au moins what I've explained today? Community
Yes.
level assessment, community level intervention, problems in monitoring. The same problems in monitoring can apply for same problems in evaluation, and the different issues to consider when I'm monitoring, when I am assessing and intervening in communities in different countries. What I need to know first and how I'm going to make my course a success. Do you have any questions so far?
Yeah.
Ou bien vous n'avez pas de questions. Vous avez compris là? Qu'est-ce qu'on veut dire par community? Pas communauté
Yes.
comme nous connaît en créole ou en français. But community in English, my dear friends, okay?
Yeah. We read the notes and try to grasp all
Okay,
the content.
fine. I will give you the notes immediately after this lecture because some people are, are in a hurry to reread their notes.
Yeah, it's,
Huh?
it's a bit complex.
It's a
the
bit
concepts.
complex.
It's a bit.
Yeah, of course,
we try-
reread the concepts. Okay, let's see after 2 weeks' time. Qui c'est qui répond moi là, s'il vous plaît, Monsieur Vinesh, Soukan? Ou bien c'est Monsieur Rohan, ou bien c'est Monsieur Apia. Qui c'est qui cause en moi là?
Yeah. About the grasping of the complexities of the concepts.
Who is talking to me right now, please?
Apia.
Ah, Mr. Apia. Okay, very good. Sorry, sometimes I don't see who is talking to me because the cameras are not on. Okay, Mr. Apia, in 2 weeks' time, so you will be the best suited, I guess, to answer this question. Okay. No, not only Mr. Apia, I was just joking, but for everybody. I will give you a question to reflect on. And please make sure that you have read your notes, have understood the concepts, and you can at least jot down some notes about it. The question is, what type of assessor is best to monitor progress of community work? Je répète, what type of assessor is best to monitor progress of community work? Excuse me. You understand the question? I am not talking about assessment process, reasons or whatever. I'm talking about an assessor, a person who is going to assess community work. Okay? Can you hear me still?
Yes, madam. Okay.
Yes,
Oui,
madam.
madam.
Right.
Yes, madam.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is give you the notes. Okay, and if you don't have any questions so far, we'll end the session here.